Jim Magner. I own the law firm, well, I'm one of several owners, with the law firm Magner Law, based here in downtown Leesburg. We perform legal services, generally pretty broad legal services. There's a few things we don't do, but there's more things we do than that we don't. We service most of Northern Virginia, DC, and Southern Maryland. We have six attorneys
Northern
now.
Maryland.
Not so much, no. Nobody wants to pay our hourly rate to drive up there. But we go as far south as Stafford and Fredericksburg, not often, but occasionally. As far west as Winchester and a little bit into Maryland. I think we had one of our clients took a case in Baltimore, and I think we did one case in actually in Ocean City. But those are unusual. Generally, it's right around the Northern Virginia market.
Okay, nice. Well, give me a little bit of a backstory on how did you come to be a lawyer? How did you come to
Sure.
law?
I didn't start out to be a lawyer. I was actually working in government affairs as a young guy. I was up on Capitol Hill and trying to be very important. And I was getting
Trying to be very
trying to
important.
be. I thought I was important. Other people did not think I was important as I thought I was. And I would get irritated because I would go to a meeting with a bunch of other government affairs people, and nothing I said got taken seriously because I was young, number one, and number two, because other people in the room had law degrees and everybody deferred to the people with the law degrees. So I finally got frustrated and thought, fine, I'll go get the piece of paper and stick it on the wall. Then they'll have to pay me more money and listen to me. So I went to law school at night, enrolled at George Mason at night, and worked full time going to school at night, and had no intention whatsoever of being a lawyer. I didn't have any inclination to do it, didn't want to be a lawyer until I got into it and discovered that I really enjoyed it. And in fact, it was a judge who's no longer at Fairfax, but he was a professor at George Mason while he was a judge, who convinced me to do it. He got me into a law clerk program at Fairfax Circuit Court, and I discovered that I really enjoyed it.
So you were like, I'm gonna go do it, but I don't even want to do this.
Right. Yeah, I went just to get the piece of paper. There's Washington is filled with people who have law degrees hanging on their walls
Yeah.
that don't practice law, and I was going to be one of them. But as it turns out, I actually really enjoyed being in the
So
courtroom.
tell us a little bit of what that enjoyment. What drew you in? What did you like about
I think the big
being a
difference for me was working in government affairs. I was never allowed to express an opinion. I always had to be very careful with everything I said and all the opinions I had. Young people have very strong opinions, and I had really, really strong opinions, but you had to smile and nod and agree with everybody
Yeah.
around you all the time. When I got into the courtroom as a law clerk and law student, I got to argue and I got to give my side of the story and I got to get up and talk
So
how
you
I
like
wanted
the
to do it. I
arguing
did. I
aspect.
really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. I enjoy being right, even when I'm wrong. And so that really appealed to me, the ability to stop sort of smiling and agreeing with everybody and actually take a stand, take a position and go with it and argue it. And sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but it was very refreshing to me, and I just really enjoyed the atmosphere.
Nice. I like that. That's very interesting.
Yeah,
Tell us a little bit of, you said you guys do all kinds of different things at the firm. Could you give us a couple examples of
sure,
what kind of cases you take on?
sure. So so I do a lot of civil litigation. I work with a lot of small businesses, everything from setting up the companies to helping people who are retiring sell their businesses or transfer them to somebody else, whether they're transferring them to a child who's going to take over or sell it outright. I do a lot of work with companies who get themselves into trouble and need somebody to go to court on their behalf, or they've got people that aren't paying them, and I help them go collect the money. A lot of that work I do. I do a lot of estate planning. Sometimes state cases end up with probate and end up with people in court fighting over Uncle Harry's money and inheritance. Unfortunately, sometimes we end up in court in those cases. That's kind of my bailiwick where I'm at. I have attorneys with the firm that specialize in family law, that specialize in criminal defense, civil litigation in
So
terms of
there's all
personal
different.
injury. Yeah,
Different lawyers specialize in different aspects.
Well, and we don't actually have specialists like doctors do. So, like, podiatrist is a doctor who specializes in feet. So we don't have specialists in the professional designation way, but we have people who concentrate in that area. My partner Jeff, for example, has been doing divorce and family law for more than 20 years, and there's few people in the Commonwealth that know more about that process than he does. And so we often joke that it would be malpractice for me to uh, take a divorce case to court, especially when he's there. So we've got these people who have these areas of knowledge. In all of our attorneys, I think our youngest attorney, our newest attorney, has 10 years of experience. So there's nobody in our firm who isn't really a master at their craft.
Okay, that's very interesting. Um, Tell me a little bit of what do you find challenging about being a lawyer nowadays or being in the whole law aspect nowadays with just stuff that's going on in the world.
I will tell you this, the one thing about being a lawyer is that when times are good, people need their lawyer. When times are bad, they really need their lawyer. So we don't see this, yeah, we don't see the fluctuations in our business that other people might, if you sell luxury cars, right? When times are bad, nobody's buying, Cadillacs. We don't see those fluctuations. Our big challenge right now is hiring people because we're living in a county that is exploding in growth. We're living in an area where the expectations and the demands for legal services are growing faster than we can keep up with them. And at the same time, law school enrollment over the last 20 years has been in decline. And so there's fewer and fewer lawyers out there. And so our challenge is actually finding new lawyers that will fit our model and practice the way that we like to practice to add them in because we're getting to the point now where I'm worried that within a couple of years we're not going to be able to service everybody that wants our services and we're going to have to be turning people down, which I've never had to do before in my career. And I've never faced that problem of having too much business. But that's really the challenge I think we're facing. And I hear it from other lawyers too that finding good new lawyers is just harder and harder because there's just fewer of them out there.
So, what are you guys looking for in these new lawyers coming out?
We are specifically our firm, we like to bring on people who have some experience that they've been out and they've been to the courthouse. They know which window to go to file the right form. They have some experience that we can stick them, stand them up at court, and they can argue something without having adult supervision with them. We unfortunately, because we're so busy, we don't have the time to take somebody right out of law school and train them. Our perfect ideal person is somebody who maybe went out on their own and started their own practice and decided they really like the law part, but don't like the management part, don't like dealing with landlords and banks and trust accounts and all of the things that go into running a firm, and they'd rather just practice law. And so that's, I think, the ideal person for us.
Okay. And now, could you give us some advice, maybe for a law student right now? Somebody who's, or maybe not even, they're not even in law school yet, but they're thinking about, is this something that I want to do? Is this something
Is this the
that I
career for
don't want
me?
to do? Is it the career for me? Give us a little advice or a little background on how things were for you, even when you were a
Absolutely.
student.
Absolutely. So I don't remember being a student because I was working full time and going at night, so it's a blur to me. I will. My advice to anybody who's thinking about it is number one, you really have to want it and be passionate about it because it's such a huge investment. It's a financial investment. It's a time investment. And so, if you're going to go down that road, you need to really do the soul searching and say, this is really what I want to do. My advice is to maybe go intern at a law firm or work as a paralegal or something, maybe during summers, during your college years, or right afterwards, before taking that plunge. I, in fact, recommend that somebody do another job first because one of the things they don't teach you in law school and nobody prepares you for, and a lot of lawyers go through their whole career never understanding, is that law is a business. Law is a service that you're providing to people. And if you can't connect with people, if you can't understand their business and what is going on with them, if all you have is law knowledge, you're not much use to them. And no matter how good you are at lawyering, you have to understand the client and be able to provide a service that the client actually needs. And many lawyers simply just don't get that. And I think because I came to law later in life. I was already out working. I already had, kids. I already had a house. I already had the mortgage to pay, all of those things. I had some experience to take with me to law school that I think the kid who goes straight from college to law school and then straight
Mhm.
out into a law program never gets those experiences. And I think it really helps somebody as a lawyer to have other experience besides lawyer.
Very interesting. Different different backgrounds lead to
Yeah,
kind of
absolutely.
different things, huh?
Absolutely. Somebody who was working as a, kindergarten teacher probably makes a, initially anyway, a better lawyer than somebody who went straight through and got perfect grades and went all the way through law school with perfect grades but never did anything else. I would be inclined to hire the person that did something else first.
Hmm. Interesting perspectives.
Thanks.
I like that. Well, tell us, you were saying that you were working while going to
Yes.
law school. What were you doing then? What were
I
you
was
doing
still doing
for
the
work
government affairs
then?
work.
And
I'm still
okay.
working for in the trucking industry, representing trucking companies in
Okay.
front of various government agencies and Capitol Hill and whatnot.
Gotcha.
And still thinking I was very important. But I had to be at my office at 7:30 in the morning, and then I would leave at 5 to go over to law school, over to the classes. I would have class until 10 o'clock at night, and I did that 5 nights a week for 4 years. Um,
Five nights a week for 4 years.
yeah,
My God.
yeah. The toughest part was that fourth year because law school is a 3-year program, but if you go at night, it's considered part time, so it takes an extra year. So
Wow.
all the people that are half the people I started with were already going off and getting their law jobs, and I still had another year to go. That was the soul crushing part of it.
Ah, I get that,
Yeah.
yes. So, tell us a little bit about now. What do you do now? Like being, you're a family man.
Hmm.
Tell
Family's a
us,
little grown now; they're on their own.
yeah,
Uh,
tell us a little bit about how it was. Did when you were working Capitol Hill and all of these things, was family still like, did you have a family then?
yeah, I had young
Did you
children at
have
home.
kids? Oh
Yeah,
my God.
wife, kids, mortgage,
Okay, so
the
that
whole
makes
bit.
it even a little bit harder.
It was a challenge. It was a challenge, but I'm glad I did it because I think the alternative is, the first couple years out of law school is brutal, and particularly if you did like I did and you go into a fairly large firm, they demand a lot of hours, a lot of billable hours, and a lot of time in the office. And so if you go from what's basically a college schedule, going to class a few hours a week, maybe working a part-time
Yeah.
job, to suddenly having to work 70, 80, 90 hours a week, it can be a huge shock to your system. Whereas for me, working 70 hours a week was like a reduction in my workload. So it was painful. It was soul
Yeah.
crushing, but it was good training.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about, I don't know if you can touch on this subject or what, but what is one of the biggest cases you guys coming up, or are you able to talk
I
about
can't really
stuff
talk
like
about
that,
cases
or
coming up because obviously they're
yeah,
in litigation.
okay.
We've handled a variety of very
Or what are
large.
the most, I should say, maybe most common cases that you've been seeing lately?
Well, it really it's funny because it does track what goes on in the economy. For example, in the initial period after COVID, a lot of the clients I represent are in the construction trades, and so there were a lot of issues, problems, and even litigation over the fact that the cost of construction materials had jumped right in the middle of times where my clients were doing projects,
Mhm.
and so they would bid a job at X dollars and then find out that the cost of materials had gone up by double, and then stuck in a contract where they were losing money. We've dealt with the fact that we're having trouble hiring, but so are our clients. Whether it's a restaurant or a dental
Yeah.
office or a construction company, the scarcity of labor has been an issue that we've had to deal with. This year, it seems like we've seen a spike in family cases, and I think that also tracks with the economy, as I've seen over the 25 years I've been practicing. When inflation goes up, when costs go up, when things get to be expensive, it puts pressure on families. It puts pressure on married couples. It put pressure on
Yeah.
those situations, and it can result in more family law disputes. And we're seeing that.
That's very interesting. It does all tie together where if one thing is kind of affected financially or even vice versa, even if it's not, if you're financially well, but family isn't well, it kind of still is an
Absolutely.
effect.
And this I think my parents' generation had it easier. And I don't want to say easy because my parents didn't have it easy, but
Yeah.
I think there was more of a cultural support for families and the family structure. I don't think that's there, and the pressures on parents, and not just financial pressures, both parents having to work, but also pressures coming from school. You're constantly told that if your kid gets a B, that's it. His college dreams are over. So you're the pressure to
Mm.
have your kid has to be getting straight A's all the time, and you're always being judged by other parents. You're
Yeah.
always being judged and being compared, and then you've got the financial pressures on top of that. And this is a tough place to live. Northern Virginia is it's great if you make it, but it's hard when you're trying to make it. And
Yeah.
and I've lived through it. And so when financial issues come up, when the economy does have troubles, it really affects people. And I don't,
Yeah.
looking from the outside, you think, oh, people are selfish. Old people might say people are so quick to get a divorce today. But I think the cultural support isn't there for the family structure like it was in the 70s or 60s.
Hmm. Speaking about families, tell us a little bit about yours. You said your kids are a little bit more grown,
Yep,
but
just packed
any
the
of
last
them lawyers?
no. Just packed the last one off to college. One of them, I just had my first grandchild, in fact.
Oh,
Yep,
congratulations.
he works for a government contractor, my son, and my oldest son. And then I have a daughter who is in computer programming down in Norfolk. And my other son works for a Navy contractor down in Norfolk. And I think that's just a fact of living in Virginia is that those government contracting jobs are
They're very
they're very
popular.
popular, they're lucrative, they got great benefits. I can't argue with my kids'
Yeah.
decisions. I wish one of them of the four, I had four, so I wish one of them would have chosen law.
Yeah.
But I understand it's much different. I mean, my entire law school education cost $65,000.
Yeah.
That's not even a semester at law school now, and
Yeah.
I can't fault a young person for saying the investment just doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah. It really does take a huge effect on it.
Yeah,
But let's talk a little bit about I read somewhere that you're a pilot
I am.
or something like that?
I do. I have a commercial pilot's license. It
Okay.
is a hobby of mine, even though it's a commercial license. It's a hobby of mine.
So you're able to fly for an airline if you would choose to.
No, so so
Or
uh,
what explain that a little bit.
sure,
Commercial license
commercial
makes
license.
makes me think that you can drive or like not drive,
So
fly.
so the levels of licensure
Uh-huh.
in pilots is private pilot, right? You get a
Okay.
private pilot, you can go fly around, you can fly your friends around, and you can go take trips if you want. The next level up is instrument rated, which isn't
Mhm.
really a different license, but it's a rating. That means I can fly in the clouds. I can fly when the weather's not good. So when I was a private pilot, if there were clouds, I was grounded. So with an instrument rating, you can do a lot more and go a lot more. The next level up from that is commercial, where you can be paid to fly. Now, commercial pilots do things like aerial photography or flying banners or, flying charters. The next level up from that is what's called air transport. And for that, you need a lot more time and money invested
Yeah,
into it. But
yeah.
air transport allows you to fly the big jets for the
Uh,
airlines. But
okay.
I came to flying a little late in life. I'm not going to start out at the bottom rung of the airline. Welcome to Cincinnati. That's probably not
That
for
would
me.
still be a lot of fun though.
I know a lot of guys who've done it. I've been very involved with and helped them get set up over at
Yeah.
Aero Elite in Leesburg here, flight school
Okay,
here,
yeah.
and they train a lot of pilots who go on to the airlines and a lot of young people, men
I
and women.
actually have a friend who has an airplane in
Oh
Leesburg.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
he's a pilot.
it's fantastic, and you can just see the excitement and the joy in their eyes as they get those licenses and move up toward their air transport and then off to their careers in the airline. It's fantastic. That was not in the cards for me. I wanted to be an astronaut when I was a kid, but I needed glasses early on and contact lenses, and so at the time I would not have qualified for the Air Force. And since I couldn't go to the Air Force and be a fighter pilot and then an astronaut, then I didn't want to do it. And I came to flying later in life, but so I just fly for fun. But if you wanted to pay me,
I mean,
you're
that's
welcome to pay me to do
I mean, now why not take
it.
do a little taxi, take people on little
You I
trips.
actually can't do that. That's, believe it or not, that's another restriction that we have, just as a commercial pilot.
Mhm.
If you had a plane, you could say, "Hey, Jim, I want to pay you to fly it," and I come over and fly it. But I can't provide taxi service because
So
that's a
it's not like you
separate
can do
regulation.
airplane Ubers.
No. No, that's a whole separate regulation.
Right.
As believe it or not, aviation has rules and
With
regulations
the
and lots of law.
the FAA laws and
FAA
all of
and
that,
yep, all of that.
I'm sure. But tell us a little bit more about I love the whole pilot stuff. Who are you outside of law then?
I have a
What?
lot of hobbies.
Okay.
So I've done some fun things in my life, mostly when I was younger. I right after college, I moved to Los Angeles and lived there for a year. I did some stand-up comedy in a club there,
Okay.
which probably helps me more in law than anything I learned in law school. Just the ability to get up in front of people and
Mhm.
worry that they're going to throw things at you, which they sometimes did. I did that. I taught sailing for about 20 years
Okay.
and love
So
sailing
you
when we were on the
can
water.
drive a boat, fly a plane, jack of all trades.
Well, they're not, never, unfortunately, never really been trades for me. There's they're always hobbies. I do a lot of writing. I've published a couple of articles, couple of well, number of articles. I've published articles on wine. My wife and I had a wine importing business for a few years, so we've done a lot in that area. I've published articles in flying magazines, and I'm currently working on a novel. So
Wow.
yeah, it's a mystery novel set here in Loudoun County,
Okay.
and I'm publishing it serially. So about every week and a half or 2 weeks, a new chapter comes out. In fact, I got to work on one tonight, and it's all about Loudoun County, and it's kind of fun. It's humorous, and it's an amalgamation of all of the crazy things I've seen in court cases and heard through my legal
Okay.
career, all sort of balled into one murder mystery. So it's been a lot
Okay.
of fun to write.
That's very fun. That's interesting. Where can we find it?
Substack. You can find it on my Substack,
Okay.
and it's coming along. so so hopefully, one of the reasons I write is because all day long I have to write really boring things.
Mhm.
Employee handbooks and construction contracts,
Mhm.
and so that allows me to go have some fun with writing.
I love that. That's very interesting. Keeps it lets you have that like free little scapegoat to imagine and have your own creativity aside from always being
Absolutely,
strictly
it's
serious and professional
It
and
does. It allows the creativity, but it also allows an outlet because you asked me about cases, and I said, well, I can't talk about them. And one of the things
yeah.
about being a lawyer is that you have all these great stories, but you can't relay them because of
Yeah.
attorney-client privilege. So I
Yes.
have found a way that I can um, pool the essence of these stories, obviously not the same exact details and nothing that's attorney-client privileged, but I can pool all of those kind of crazy things that you've encountered over your career and put them into story form and allows an outlet of that so I don't have to keep these stories bottled up all the time.
I like that. I
Now,
like that.
as
Are you ever gonna publish it as an actual like full on hardcover
I would love
or
to. I'm really not a novelist. I don't have an agent or anything. If there's an agent out there who wants to represent me, please message me
he's
privately.
open to it.
If it's any good, it probably isn't that great. I'm not a professional writer in
Mhm.
that sense. I mean, I've published things, but it's
Who
mostly
knows? It could be your big
it
break.
could be. It could be my retirement job, right?
There you go.
It's a lot of fun. I'm enjoying it, and if somebody wanted me to do that, I'd look into it.
I like that. That's very
I think
fun.
all four of my readers really enjoy it. So
Well, it'll be 5. I'll go on there and take a look. I want to read too. I love murder stuff and like, well, no, that sounded really bad. I didn't mean murders. I like the whole murder mystery. Like, I've never been to like a murder mystery like dinner or anything like that, but I would love to do it one day.
it's a lot of fun, and I love the genre, and I love everything from old Agatha Christie stuff all the way
Mhm.
through modern stuff that's on TV, like
Yeah.
Only Murders in the Building kind of thing.
Oh, I
And
love that.
yeah, isn't it great? My preference though is that as you're watching the mystery, whether it's a serial cop drama on TV or a book, is the reader should have a fair chance to figure it out. Like
Mhm.
it shouldn't be so easy that by page 3 you're like, oh, the butler did it. But
Yeah.
but it shouldn't be that like at the very last chapter they throw in some new characters you never heard of and you never had a chance to guess
And you're
anything.
like,
Like
"What the
it should be
heck?"
like a game that you're playing with
Yeah.
the author. Like I put the clues together. I got it.
And then it's like, "Oh, you thought it was this guy," and then all of a sudden you're like, "What?"
Well, yeah, but and
You're
it
like,
should be
"How did that
fair.
swipe sideswipe me?"
Right. Yeah, it should be a fair chance. You have a fair
Yeah.
chance of figuring it out. So hopefully I've done that in my book.
Yeah, I love that. All right. Well, Jim, for my couple last questions, is there anything that we didn't touch on during our conversation that you would love the audience to know about you or know about your business, your firm?
Sure.
Um,
I think the one thing that I would want people to know is that we are committed to being part of the community. We're not just here taking fees and charging by the hour.
mm,
We try to be a part of the local community. We get involved in charity. We get involved in local works. We get involved in local groups. I encourage my attorneys to go out and do those things as well because when the community flourishes, we flourish. And also, I like this community. I like being part of it, and so I want the things that we're involved with to flourish as well. I think that for lawyers especially, and I want my lawyers to understand this and
mm,
live this as well, is that if you're going to go out and serve the community, you have to know the community, you have to be part of the community. And so we're really emphasize that and try and take that to heart.
awesome. Yes. And then for my last question, um, do you have some sort of mantra or just last, parting words
Absolutely.
that you live by?
Absolutely. Well, at least for the firm,
Mhm.
our mantra is that the client should be better off for having hired us. We can't win every case.
Yeah.
I wish we could. We win a lot of them. We can't get everything that everybody wants, but the client should always be better off for having hired us, and not just because they got to see us in court. It should
Yeah.
be something that we have done to move their ball forward to improve their life some way. And if we accomplish that, then we're successful. If we don't accomplish that, then we failed.
Well, thank you very much, Jim, for coming in today, giving us a little bit of insight into the background lawyer world, little insight into where we can read a little bit about the things that happen in the lawyer world that we can't speak of. But thank you for being here today and
Thanks for having me. It's a lot
touching
of
on
fun. A
everything.
lot of fun. I appreciate it.